while state leaders of the wealthy Group of Seven, G7, and their counterparts from guest nations gathered in Hiroshima last week to announce their plans to counter China's malign practices and tackle economic coercion. President Xi Jinping was courting 5 Central Asian nations with promises of deals, boosting law enforcement, security and defense capability construction. By the time Xi had wrapped up chairing of the inaugural China-Central Asia Summit, which took place in the symbolic city of Xi'an, the capital of Shaanxi Province, a grand plan that involved a total of 26 billion yuan, $3 United States. 7 billion of financial support and grants had been announced. Xi also called for the expansion of economic and trade ties and energy cooperation, including speeding up the construction of Line D of the China-Central Asia gas pipeline. He also proposed establishing a China-Central Asia Energy Development Partnership, expanding trade in oil and gas, pursuing cooperation throughout the energy industrial chains and strengthening cooperation on new energy and peaceful use of nuclear energy. Leaders from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, who were holding their first ever in-person meetings under the new mechanism since establishing diplomatic ties in 1992, also pledged mutual support for each other's core interests and approach to development. Together, leaders of the 6 countries also stressed the importance of improving connectivity in the region, including better transport links between Central Asia, Southeast Asia and the rest of the continent. The summit came at a time when China is seeking to break U.S.-led containment, encirclement and suppression, a term raised by Xi during his discussion with delegates of China's top legislature in March. Having been dissatisfied with perceived Western dominance, China has been increasingly vocal about establishing a Chinese-led global order via its Belt and Road Initiative, a major infrastructure policy announced by Xi when he visited Kazakhstan in 2013, and the Global Development Initiative and the Global Security Initiative, which were proposed by China in 2021 and 2022, respectively. As part of the summit, Xi held a series of one-on-one meetings with the 5 leaders, who all expressed support for greater Chinese engagement in the region, including under the flagship Belt and Road Initiative. The 2 main Belt and Road Initiative projects currently under discussion are a railway connecting China to Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan, and a natural gas pipeline from Turkmenistan. Beijing is also hoping to bolster its relations with the region given its strategic significance to the Belt and Road Initiative, with Russia's engagement in its prolonged war with Ukraine creating a vacuum for China to expand its influence. Multimedia. The Central Asian gas pipeline. In September, Xi chose Central Asia for his first trip abroad in more than 2 years after China had isolated itself as part of its zero-COVID policy. Xi spent 3 days in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and attended a summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a China-led security and economic collective. Beijing views Central Asia as a critical frontier for expanding commerce and energy security, with trade between China and the 5 Central Asian countries reaching $70 United States. $2 billion last year, up by 40% year-on-year. The region also guarantees at least 15% of China's natural gas supply. Energy ties between China and Central Asia were not affected by the Ukraine war, with Central Asia supplying more than two-thirds of China's pipeline gas imports and China importing much more natural gas from Central Asia than from Russia. The region is also regarded as crucial to maintaining stability in Xinjiang and for it to be free of terrorism influence. The summit showcased how the 5 Central Asian countries, traditionally under the influence of Russia as former Soviet states, are pivoting to align more with China as a source of security and investment. They have not criticized the war in Ukraine and abstained from a vote condemning Russia at the United Nations General Assembly in February, yet Russia's invasion of Ukraine, also a former Soviet state, did rattle the nerves of the Central Asian countries. Last month, Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang said China, which shares a similar view and stance on the crisis in Ukraine, was willing to work with the Central Asian countries to push for a solution. Chinese President Xi Jinping rolled out the red carpet for his counterparts from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan in the northwestern city of Xi'an. Summit, a major diplomatic event, to boost China's ties with Central Asian nations amid Ukraine, Afghanistan concerns. Leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan invited to First China-Central Asia Summit. Presence of ethnic Russians in the 5 countries has triggered fears Moscow could target their territory next, analyst says. China is expected to further boost ties with Central Asia when President Xi Jinping hosts his counterparts from the region amid uncertainties stemming from Russia's war in Ukraine and increasing hostility from the West. Beijing has hailed the 2-day Summit of Nations in the vast and geo-strategically important neighboring region on Thursday and Friday as the first major diplomatic event that China hosts this year. It was a step back in time in Xi'an on Thursday night as Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife, Peng Liyuan, welcomed 5 Central Asian leaders for a summit. The gathering in the northwestern Chinese city, home to the Terracotta Warriors and the start of the Silk Road, got underway performances and a banquet inspired by the Tang dynasty, 618–907. China is increasingly looking to Central Asia as a major energy partner, with joint projects expected to be on the agenda at a regional summit from Thursday. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his counterparts from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan will be in the northwestern Chinese city of Xi'an for a 2-day China-Central Asia Summit, an event that comes as China faces growing decoupling pressure from the US-led West. Uzbekistan's attempts to embrace a China-like economic growth model are paving the way for Beijing to build a stronghold in Central Asia and to fill a vacuum left by Russia after Western sanctions. In a widely anticipated referendum on constitutional reform, to be held on April 30, the most populous Central Asia country will decide whether to extend presidential terms from 5 to 7 years, and whether to provide more protection for investors, including Chinese state-owned firms and private entrepreneurs.